Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. It's Tori. Today I am very excited to be sharing with you my April TBR. Now, some of you already know this, but I am co-captaining a readathon over in the Keymark Discord, which I will link down below in the description box if you want to join in on the readathon. I have also made a video that I posted yesterday that you can go check out that has all of the juicy details for that. So if you haven't already signed up, join us. It's going to be a fun time. All you have to do is read up to 5 science fiction fantasy books in the month of April, and the whole goal of this is to get rid of books on your TBR that you already have. We're kind of getting to that part of the year where the excitement of the New Year's resolution and the January, February, like dive in and read has kind of sort of started to die down into the grind of reading the books on our TBR, and those TBR stacks can get really intimidating. So the whole goal of the readathon is to fix part of that problem. But anyways, I'm here to show you what I am planning on reading for the readathon and potentially a couple of other books. We'll see how far I get this month. I have no idea. I'm also still chugging along on my manuscript for my first epic fantasy novel, The Bloodstones, which will, if everything goes to plan, be out late 2023. I'm really starting to chug along with that. I'm in the last third-ish of the book, maybe, and starting to get to a lot of the end scene stuff for this book that I've been planning for months and months and months, so it's really exciting to just actually be getting to some of those scenes, because it does take a while to get from the beginning of the book and that first blank page to the end, and all of the things that you've had in your head for ages are finally coming onto the page. Anyways, but as far as reading goes, when I went back to look at my TBR for this month and what I wanted to include for the readathon and just what's been sitting there for a while, because I have quite a few books on my TBR that I've been meaning to read for a long time, and honestly at this point I could just do with about 6 months of TBR readathons. That would be great. But I think I have some really good books lined up for the month of April. Now, I do have a few kind of substitute books in the wings, just in case I get to a point in April where one of these books I'm not really feeling, because you guys know me and I do love a mood read, and I wanted to make sure that I wasn't locked into one specific book. I'm going to pull up my list of prompts really quickly. Blah, blah, blah. So the way that I figured out my prompts for the readathon is I decided to go for the 5 bonus points first, because I wanted to make sure that I hit all of those to get the maximum amount of points possible for my team. And so I kind of picked out books based on the bonus prompts and then worked my way backwards into the list of main prompts. The first one that I had to find was a book that was published in the 20th century. Now, I do have quite a few books on my shelves that fit that description, and I really kind of struggled between several of them for this prompt, and I feel a little bit bad because the book that I ended up going with is a book that's probably been on the list the shortest amount of time. So that is Legend by David Gemmell. I know so many people that love this book, and the thing that I really love about this is I think it's going to be a little bit of a different flavor than a lot of the other books on my TBR for this month, which I'm looking forward to. And it's honestly not an intimidating read. It's very short. I'll be able to fly through this pretty quickly, I think. Do you guys remember when we were all doing the Build Your Own Warband tag? The number of times that I saw Druss on the Axeman slot was kind of incredible. So I'm very much looking forward to this. I think it's going to be a great time. The other candidates for this prompt that I considered briefly, I have Homeland, which is one of the first, chronologically first stories of Drizzt from R.A. Salvatore, which is also something that I've been meaning to read for a while and would not be an intimidating read at all. And that's probably going to be my backup for this, just on the off chance I don't feel like reading this, which I probably will because I'm very excited about it. And the other one that I briefly considered was Tigana by Guy Gavriel Kay. What kept me from choosing that one is A, because it's quite a bit more chunky than the other two. I have not read any Guy Gavriel Kay, but I was a little worried that it was going to be a little more dense than I wanted to do for a readathon. I would prefer to take a book like that more slowly and not have to feel pressured or rushed to get through it. So Tigana got put back on the shelf, which I feel bad about because it's honestly probably been on my TBR the longest of these three options. But I'm very, very excited to read Legend by David Gemmell, so I can finally say that I've read it and I've been introduced to David Gemmell's work and all of the things. Next up, I had to pick a book from the 21st century as a bonus prompt, and the other main prompt that I added to this was a book that I've put on the back burner. This is a book that I have been meaning to read because I love Red Rising and I love sci fantasy, and I've been wanting to get into more sci fantasy and sci-fi a little bit this year, kind of dip my toes in and see what I think about it and read some of the favorites. And the book that I have seen recommended by so many people as a great starting point for kind of that sci fantasy feel or sci-fi, lighter sci-fi feel is The Martian by Andy Weir. So this book I actually chose as my book club pick for my, I never know what to say, my college friends book club. Real life seems a little weird to say, but college friends book club with my husband and two of our closest friends from college. And it was my turn to pick this time, and I picked The Martian, not only because it fits the April readathon, but I think it's a book that all four of us will get a lot out of and have a lot to talk about. I wanted to make sure that I had a sci-fi book on this pile because it's going to be a great switch up from the fantasy, and it's going to give me a little bit of a break if I need one. Looking forward to this. I've been told that it's basically Castaway on Mars, so I'm here for that. Next up on the list, I had to choose a book that was a second book in a series. I was kind of surprised by this prompt because when I was looking at my shelves, I honestly don't have a ton of books that were the second book in a series that I hadn't read yet, because usually what happens is if I really like a series, I will binge it, or if I don't like book one and I'm just not feeling it, I will usually unhaul the series and not continue. So I only had a few for this prompt, but I'm kind of excited about this one. I do have two options. As you can see, the first pick on the list is Priest of Lies, which is from The War for the Rose Throne by Peter McLean. I read Priest of Bones in 2022, and I enjoyed it. I had a good enough time with it that I wanted to read book two and just see how the series continues. This is a very fast read. Priest of Bones went very quickly for me last year, so I know that this is a solid choice because it's not going to be dense or hard to get through. But I'm really excited to see where this series goes, and I think it's going to be a great addition, and yet again, a very different flavor than a lot of what the other things I have on this list. I tried really hard to pick things that gave me a variety of reading flavors for this month, because I think that's really a key to readathon books, is if you can give yourself a variety, do it, because that will help avoid burnout. The other option I had for this prompt is, again, a book that I have been saying that I've been going to read forever, and I'm really frustrated that I haven't gotten to it yet, and that is Fires of Vengeance by Evan Winter, and this is his book two in the Burning series. I read Rage of Dragons in, I think, 2020? Has it been that long? I think it has. Sorry, Evan. I need to get to this book. The only reason that this did not make the cut over Priest of Lies is because it's a little bit chunkier, and as you will see, I do already have two slightly more chunky books on this list. Rage of Dragons I read very quickly, so it's not like I anticipate this being a dense read by any stretch of the imagination. And also, can we just briefly talk about how freaking awesome this cover is? Yeah, but anyways, Rage of Dragons was an incredible fantasy debut, and I think Evan Winter's an amazing writer in person, so I'd really like to read this, but we'll see where I'm at. If I need something shorter, I am going to read Priest of Lies, and I will just shift Fires of Vengeance to my MBR, TBR for the next couple of months. All right, now this one is a book that I knew I had to put on this list because it's been on my list for a while, and it's even made it into a ton of my TBR videos in the past. In 2022, I think this was my most TBR'd book that never got read. So this book is hitting the debut novel bonus prompt. And it is also a book that I've been hoarding because I know that I'm gonna love it. At least I'm pretty sure I'm gonna love it. That is none other than The Blade itself. I cannot even, if I had $1 for every time I held this book up in a TBR video, I swear. So this book definitely deserves its place on the list this month because it's been sitting there waiting for me to actually follow through and put my money where my mouth is and actually read the book. And I think I'm actually going to do that this month. So Blade itself is Joe Abercrombie's first book in the First Law trilogy. Like, I'm the last person to read this book, I think. But I'm really looking forward to this. I've heard that it's incredibly character driven, that the plot's pretty light, but that doesn't really bother me. And I also don't anticipate this being a really dense read. So again, I feel like I'm going to be able to move through it rather quickly, but this is the only book on the list that I'm not sure. I just don't want this book to slow me down, and I don't think it's going to, but we'll find out. Very excited to get to this finally, and I swear, like, I almost want to start with this one just so that I'm not like procrastinating and then getting out of it yet again, because this poor book needs to be read. Heaven's sakes. Last but not least on the prompt list, I had to do a book that was a indie author written book and also fits the prompt of a 500-page chunker, which Blade itself also fits that, and honestly so does Fires of Vengeance, which is one of the reasons, like, between these 3 books, that would be over 1,500 pages. I just felt like that was a little bit much for 1 month. And this is a book that has been on my review copy TBR the longest. This is the book that was the first time anybody ever reached out to me on my channel to say, hey, will you review this book for me? And I feel like I am definitely in a headspace now where I'm very excited to read this. I'm really looking forward to it and giving it a try. And that is Ascendant by Michael R. Miller. Now, this is what I've been told is the, like, improvement on Aragon from what I've been hearing, and it's Dragon Rider, very familiar tropes and themes, but done really well. I've heard a lot of good things about this book, and despite the fact that it is 500 plus pages, I really don't think this is going to be a dense read at all. I try really hard when I'm reading readathons not to pick dense books, because for me, I need to take time with those, and I do not want to try to read them under pressure because I will burn out. Ascendant is a book that has been waiting for me to read it since September of last year. It's been long enough, and I'm really excited to read this. To be honest, the fact that there's a blind dragon on the cover really hooked me right away because I'm just dying of curiosity, and the subsequent covers to this, especially the third one, are just really, really, really beautiful. I think this is a Chris McGrath cover, if I'm correct, who is an incredible artist. If you haven't checked out his art, you totally should. But yeah, so this is my indie author and also 500-page chonker, and it's a book that's been sitting on my review copies TBR the longest, and definitely I am ready to give it a whirl. Those are my readathon books. I'm feeling really good about this, and I didn't realize this when I put them all together, but I have kind of a color scheme going with this stack. And even if I include Fires of Vengeance, I didn't even try to do that. I'm very impressed with it. I love this stack. It's very pretty, and it feels a little bit more autumn than spring, but hey, that's okay. We're rule breakers anyways. Now, outside of the readathon, there are 2 possible buddy reads that I also want to get through in April, and this is where the large M, uppercase MBR, comes into play, because I don't know if I'm going to be able to get through the readathon books and these 2 books all in the month of April, and also write my book, and also Easter, etc. Northanger Abbey is very tiny. It's one of Jane Austen's lesser read novels from what I can tell, and it's also partially satirical, I believe. So some of you may already know that I've been doing the Classics Cage Match discussions with my friends Evie, Kay, and Patricia Meredith, and we've talked about Wuthering Heights, and we've talked about Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, and the next pick for our classics little, like, group that accidentally started is Northanger Abbey, which Evie recommended that we try, and I love this copy because it's tiny and it's pretty and I'm happy about it. This is a book that I may get through in the end of March here. We'll see how that goes. I still have a couple books to finish, but I think I'm gonna easily get through those in the next day or 2 here. Here's the one that Like, I want to read it so bad. But I really don't know if I'm going to be able to read it in April. As many of you know, my friends Alan, Alex, Joanna, and I were reading Shogun along with a whole bunch of other people. Shogun by James Clavell, which is a massive historical fiction about feudal Japan, kind of rekindled my love of really massive epic stories. And we were planning on starting the sequel to Shogun, which is Taipan, which is book 2 in the Asian saga, with that same group and a couple of other people going forward into April, May. It's not as long as Shogun. It's really not that bad. It's only 580 pages. Not honestly that bad compared to Shogun, which was 1200. I'm obligated to read for the readathon, and I really need to make sure that I get all of the team points possible. And so Taipan might be the book that I don't get to. And I hate that because I really want to read it. I just don't know if it's going to be possible this month. I really don't think it's going to happen, and I'm really upset about it. I really don't want to fall behind on that read along, but with the readathon in April, there's really no way for me to keep up with all of these books. I feel really good about where I'm at for the readathon. I'm feeling pumped. I'm really excited to read these books. I think that there's going to be some maybe 5-star reads in here. I'm really excited for that. If you haven't joined the readathon yet, be sure to go check out my previous video about the readathon and sign up and pick a team and get reading for April. Get rid of some of those TBR books because I'm really looking forward to getting some of mine off my long-standing TBR. It's going to feel amazing to be able to say that I've actually read these books. Yeah. So that's pretty much all from me for the TBR for April. I hope you guys are having a great reading month here in March. Please let me know down in the comments what book you are most excited to read in April. And I will talk to you guys soon and see you in the next video.